Have you ever noticed how some people always seem to get what they want from you? Not by force, not by threats, just by talking. One conversation, and somehow you agree to things you didn't plan. You trust people you barely know. You reveal information you probably should have kept to yourself. And only later, sometimes hours later, sometimes months later, the realization hits you like a punch to the stomach. You were played, but here's the uncomfortable question. Most people avoid asking themselves, why does this keep happening? Why do intelligent, capable people still fall into the same traps again and again? Because the people who manipulate others don't attack your logic. They attack your psychology. And the scary part is this. They often know how your mind works better than you do. Smart manipulators don't rely on luck. They rely on patterns, predictable human behaviors, emotional shortcuts your brain takes every single day. And once you see these patterns, something strange happens. Suddenly, the tricks that once fooled you start to look obvious. But until you understand them, you will keep walking straight into the same traps. Let's start with the first reason you fall for these traps. Your brain loves shortcuts. Psychologists call these mental heuristics. Your brain is constantly looking for ways to save energy. Instead of analyzing every situation deeply, it relies on quick signals to decide what to do. Think about it. If someone speaks confidently, you assume they know what they're talking about. If many people agree with something, you assume it must be correct. If someone is friendly and charming, you assume they are trustworthy. These shortcuts are extremely useful in everyday life. Without them, you would spend hours analyzing every tiny decision. But manipulators understand this system, and they know how to hijack it. They create the exact signals your brain is programmed to trust: confidence, authority, social proof, urgency. Suddenly, your brain stops questioning and starts cooperating. You feel like you're making your own decision, but in reality, the decision was engineered long before you even realized what was happening. Now, imagine this situation. Someone walks into a room and starts speaking with absolute certainty. Their tone is calm. Their words are clear. They speak as if what they're saying is obvious. No hesitation, no doubt. Most people immediately assume one thing. This person must know what they're doing. Confidence creates authority in the human mind, even when that confidence is completely fake. Studies have shown something fascinating. People trust confident speakers more than accurate ones. Let that sink in for a second. Confidence often beats truth. That's why many manipulative personalities train themselves to appear extremely certain. They remove hesitation from their voice. They speak quickly. They avoid phrases like maybe or I think. And your brain interprets that certainty as competence. By the time your logic starts asking questions, your emotional brain has already accepted the message. And this is where the trap begins to close. But confidence alone isn't enough. Smart manipulators use another powerful weapon: social proof. Humans are deeply influenced by the behavior of others. If you see many people supporting something, your brain automatically lowers its guard. It feels safer to follow the crowd. This instinct helped humans survive for thousands of years. When danger appeared, the group reacted faster than the individual. But today, that same instinct can be exploited. Imagine you're unsure about someone's credibility. Then suddenly you hear that many people respect them. Maybe they mention famous clients. Maybe they show testimonials. Maybe they casually drop names of important people. Now your brain shifts. If others trust them, they must be trustworthy. Right? But here's the trick. Social proof doesn't need to be real to work. It only needs to look convincing, and skilled manipulators know exactly how to create that illusion. Another reason people fall into traps is something psychologists call reciprocity. It's one of the strongest social rules humans follow. If someone does something for you, you feel pressure to return the favor, even if you didn't ask for the help, even if the help was small. Imagine someone gives you advice, a compliment, or a small favor. Suddenly you feel a subtle emotional debt. You want to be polite, you want to be fair, so when they ask for something later, saying no feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is the trap, because the favor was never about kindness. It was an investment, a psychological hook placed in your mind. And the scary part is that most people never notice it happening. They simply feel the urge to cooperate without understanding why. Now, here's where things become even more interesting. Manipulators rarely push hard. In fact, they often do the opposite. They move slowly. They ask for very small things first. This technique is known as the foot-in-the-door strategy. It works like this. First, a tiny request, something almost impossible to refuse. Maybe just a small opinion, a little favor, a quick piece of information. Nothing threatening. Once you say yes to that small request, something changes inside your brain. You start seeing yourself as someone who cooperates with that person. Your identity shifts slightly, and when the next request comes, a bigger one, your brain tries to stay consistent with your previous behavior. Humans hate feeling inconsistent, so they continue saying yes, step by step, until suddenly they've agreed to something far bigger than they ever intended. But perhaps the most dangerous trap of all is emotional manipulation. Smart manipulators understand emotions better than most people understand logic. They know exactly which emotional buttons to press: fear, guilt, sympathy, hope. These emotions can completely override rational thinking. Imagine someone making you feel guilty for setting boundaries, or making you feel responsible for their problems, or creating fear that you might miss an opportunity if you don't act quickly. Your brain shifts into emotional mode. And when emotions take control, logic steps aside. This is why high-pressure sales tactics work so well. Urgency creates emotional stress, and under stress, the brain looks for the fastest way to relieve discomfort. Usually by agreeing. Here's something most people don't realize. Manipulation often feels good in the moment. That's why it works. The manipulator makes you feel smart, appreciated, important, understood. They mirror your opinions. They validate your feelings. They make you feel like you're part of an exclusive opportunity. And your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical linked to pleasure and reward. In that moment, you're not analyzing the situation. You're enjoying it. Only later, when the emotional high disappears, does the clarity arrive. And by then, the decision has already been made. There's also another psychological factor involved. People hate admitting they were wrong. Once you've made a decision, even a small one, your brain starts defending it. This is known as commitment bias. Imagine realizing halfway through a situation that something feels off. Instead of stopping immediately, many people double down. They justify their actions. They convince themselves everything is fine. Why? Because admitting the mistake would damage their self-image. And manipulators know this. They design traps that slowly escalate commitment. By the time doubt appears, the person feels too invested to back out easily. Think about how many scams follow this exact pattern. First, trust, then small commitment, then emotional pressure, then escalation. It's a psychological staircase. Each step feels manageable, but the final step reveals the trap. And by then, escaping feels complicated or embarrassing. That's why so many intelligent people fall for these situations. Intelligence alone doesn't protect you from psychological manipulation. Awareness does. Another powerful trick manipulators use is controlling the frame of the conversation. The frame is simply the perspective from which a situation is viewed. Whoever controls the frame controls the interpretation of reality. For example, instead of presenting something as a risky decision, they frame it as a rare opportunity. Instead of admitting uncertainty, they frame doubt as negativity. Suddenly, the conversation becomes biased without you realizing it. Your brain begins evaluating the situation inside the frame they created, and when that happens, you're no longer debating the real question. You're debating the version of reality they designed. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. Most manipulation doesn't happen because people are stupid. It happens because people are human. Humans want to trust. Humans want to cooperate. Humans want to believe the best about others. These are beautiful qualities. They are also exploitable qualities. Smart manipulators don't invent new weaknesses. They simply use the natural features of human psychology. So, how do you stop falling into these traps? The first step is slowing down your decisions. Manipulation thrives on speed. Urgency is one of its favorite tools. Whenever someone pushes you to decide quickly, that's a signal to pause. Real opportunities rarely disappear in minutes. Pressure is often a tactic, not a reality. The second step is questioning emotional reactions. If a conversation suddenly makes you feel intense guilt, fear, or excitement, ask yourself a simple question. Who benefits from me feeling this way right now? That question alone can break many manipulative strategies. The third step is observing patterns instead of words. Manipulators are often excellent talkers, but behavior reveals far more than speech. Do their actions match their claims? Do they create urgency repeatedly? Do they constantly position themselves as the authority? Patterns expose manipulation faster than arguments ever will. And finally, remember this. The most powerful defense against manipulation is self-awareness. When you understand your own emotional triggers, your own need for approval, your own fear of conflict, you become far harder to control. Manipulators depend on unconscious reactions. Once those reactions become conscious, the entire system begins to collapse. So the next time you meet someone incredibly persuasive, confident, and charming, don't immediately assume they're trustworthy. Step back, observe, ask questions. Because the smartest manipulators don't look dangerous. They look impressive. And that is exactly why their traps work so well. Now, here's the real question. How many times in your life have you already fallen into one of these traps without even realizing it? And more importantly, now that you understand how the game works, will it happen again?